Good morning. Welcome to TVP World News. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. The European Union's trade ministers are convening in Warsaw for a final day of discussions on aligning trade and industrial policies. Now, the meeting will focus on evaluating the tools currently supporting the EU's global competitiveness and strengthening its industrial ecosystem. Now, the ministers will explore strategies to enhance the resilience of the single European market and develop a unified approach to engaging with external partners, including the United States. A key component of the summit will be a working session for EU heads of delegations centered on the future of the transatlantic partnership. Now, this informal gathering is part of Poland's presidency of the Council of the European Union for 2025. Speaking from the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump accused the European Union of exploiting the United States for years and warned of reciprocal tariffs in response. Now, Trump also criticized the EU's value-added tax, claiming it's excessively high and essentially functions as sort of a tariff.
The European has abused the United States for years, and they can't do that. And they want to make a deal. Let me tell you, in all cases, they all want to make deals. There's nobody that doesn't want to make deals. They've been abusers, and they want to make deals. So we'll see about that. But we'll have, I think, some very fair. All we want is a fair deal. And, you know, there's a word reciprocal. I'd go right now, reciprocal tariffs on everybody. Because many of the countries that you feel so horrible about, the way they're being treated by Trump, you're saying, oh, President Trump is so terrible to them. Well, they charge us tariffs. European Union has a VAT tax, which is through the roof, okay? It's a similar thing, similar to a tariff.
The European Union wants a constructive dialogue with the United States, but is ready to respond firmly if it is unfairly targeted by the new Trump administration. This is what European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Monday following an informal meeting of EU leaders in Belgium. Her statement was echoed by the head of the European Council, Antonio Costa, who defended European values and the bloc's territorial integrity, the Kingdom of Denmark.
The European Union is prepared for a robust but constructive dialogue with the United States. But we also recognize potential challenges in the relationship with the United States, and we are ready for that. When targeted, unfairly or arbitrarily, the European Union will respond firmly. This weekend, we witnessed how steep tariffs were imposed on Canada and Mexico. Those tariffs raise business costs, they harm workers and consumers, they create unnecessary economic disruption and drive inflation. We do not see much good coming out of this.
So if the territorial integrity of a member state of the European Union is questioned, and preserving the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, its sovereignty and the inviolability of its borders is essential for all member states. And the European Union fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark.
Let's hear what other officials had to say about the threat of a trade war and the annexation of Greenland.
We are preparing also on our side, but what is clear, there are no winners in trade wars. If United States and the US start the trade war, then the one laughing on the side is China. We are very interlinked. We need America, and America needs us as well.
Everybody has to respect the sovereignty of all national states in the world, and that Greenland is today a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It's a part of our territory, and it's not for sale. The chairman, the leader of Greenland, has been very clear that they are not for sale. I totally agree with the Americans that the High North, that the Arctic region is becoming more and more important when we're talking about defense and security and deterrence. And it is possible to find a way to ensure stronger footprints in Greenland. They are already there, and they can have more possibilities. And then at the same time, we are willing to scale up from the Kingdom of Denmark. And I think NATO is the same. So if this is about securing our part of the world, we can find a way forward.
Both the US and Europe benefit from the exchange of goods and services. If tariff policy now makes this difficult, it would be bad for the US and bad for Europe. It is clear that as a strong economic area, we can shape things ourselves and can also react to tariff policies with our own. We must and will do this, but the perspective and goal should be that we proceed in a way that leads to cooperation.
This could be the first time European solidarity is tested this way. The situation is very unusual, with a slew of surprises coming from our closest ally. I just now talked with my Scandinavian and Baltic counterparts, especially with the Danish Prime Minister, about the situation Denmark found itself in. Europe needs to show common sense, calm and responsibility. We need to manage our relations with the United States while also retaining our dignity. And we need to be unequivocally united. We should do everything possible to not argue among allies in the face of the Russian threat and Chinese expansionism. Poland will certainly plead for common sense and carefulness, but we should also clearly state that any tariffs and trade wars would be completely senseless.
Canada may choose to redirect trade efforts from the United States towards the European Union, according to the Vice President of the European Commission, Stéphane Séjourné. Now, I sat down with Séjourné on World Talks here in studio, and in his view, raw materials, gas and fuels could be the subject of new discussions.
We are also going to start a new discussion with Canada to coordinate our two markets, the European market of 450 million consumers and the Canadian market, which produces a number of goods that we Europeans consume. I'm thinking in particular of raw materials, fuels and gas, which could possibly be the subject of new forms of discussion if the Americans ever shut down. So we have to be very careful how they construct their industrial and commercial policy towards the United States, because there's a risk that the rest of the world will continue to trade and continue to exchange, and that the Americans will close themselves off. And I believe they are allies. We need to be able to have this discussion with them in the interests of Europeans. But we're building, just in case, a trade agreement with those who see the American market closing.
Des accords commerciaux avec ceux qui voient le marché américain se fermer.
U.S. President Donald Trump has decided to pause the introduction of tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. Now, the move came after Trump held 2 phone calls last evening with leaders from both countries. The new measures will not be implemented for 30 days. Now, Trump halted the 25% flat tariffs for the coming month. A similar conversation took place between Trump and the president of Mexico. During the call, the pair agreed to hold talks on trade and security, with Mexico dispatching additional 10,000 National Guard troops to the U.S. border. China is set to impose retaliatory tariffs against the United States. The measures will hit U.S. imports of large engine cars, trucks, LNG, crude oil, and agricultural machinery. Now, the tariffs include a 15% tax on coal and liquefied natural gas imports from the U.S. Crude oil, agricultural machinery, pickup trucks, and large engine cars will face a 10% tariff. Now, the move comes after a deadline set by Donald Trump passed overnight, and new 10% tariffs on Chinese imports came into effect. The move escalates tensions between the 2 largest economies in the world. To avoid such issues, authorities in Beijing called for talks to negotiate a deal, but to no avail. China's President Xi Jinping is expected to speak with his American counterpart to resolve the matter by the end of this week. What's the future of Belarus, and can the totalitarian country finally be free from the Lukashenko regime? Well, top European officials will be attempting to answer these questions today at the Kościuszko Forum, an event of the Polish presidency in the Council of the European Union. And our reporter, Kazimierz Łysiak, is there in Gdańsk, where the event is taking place. Good morning, Kazimierz. So what's on the agenda right now?
Good morning, Diana. Currently, several European ministers, along with the special guest of honor, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, the exiled leader of the democratic opposition in Belarus, are holding a discussion panel on the future of Belarus, on how to support democratic movements in Belarus, which is, of course, very difficult as the totalitarian country is repressing any democratic movements under Lukashenko regime. That's Alexander Lukashenko, the self-proclaimed president of Belarus, who has just secured a 7th consecutive win in the elections in Belarus. I'm putting the word win in quotations because, as we know from democratic opposition movements in Belarus and international observers, these elections have been rigged once again. And the leaders gathered here include Lithuanian Foreign Minister, but also Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine. Of course, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski is the host of the event, but there is also the Swedish Minister for European Affairs, who are all here discussing the future of Belarus. And we've just witnessed all of these officials laying flowers here at the Gdańsk shipyard, a very symbolic place, the place where the solidarity movement in Poland in the 1980s has taken down the communist regime in Poland. So this is a very special place for all Poles, but also for the entire Europe and for all countries of the former Soviet bloc. Belarusian democratic leader Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya will be also having a press conference here with Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski later in the day. Currently, they are discussing the future of Belarus.
A lot of things happening there, Kazimierz. We will be coming back to you throughout the day. That's Kazimierz Wysiak in Gdańsk. Latest reports show that Russian troops have suffered substantial losses as they advance in Ukraine and that their pace has slowed. Now, the Institute for the Study of War, a U.S.-based think tank, is saying that Russian forces suffered heavy losses in January and that Moscow's advances in Ukraine have slowed down compared to previous months. Also, according to latest data from Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, Russian troops suffered approximately 48,000 casualties in January 2025 alone. The Institute for the Study of War's geolocation data further indicates that Russian troops captured 498 square kilometers in Ukraine and Russia's Kursk region in January, or approximately 16 square kilometers per day. Now, this information suggests that Moscow is taking 96 casualties for every square kilometer of territory gained per day. Moldova is intensifying discussions with allies about boosting its air defenses after what it says was an invasion of the country's airspace by a drone. Now, Moldova's pro-European president, Maia Sandu, has repeatedly denounced Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Moldova has not identified the origin of the UAV, but stated that it entered from the border with Ukraine before returning to Ukrainian territory. Since Moscow launched its war on Ukraine 3 years ago, Chisinau has recorded several violations of its airspace by Russian drones. On a state visit to El Salvador, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that his goal is to align foreign aid with American national interests. Now, to date, the agency has provided countries around the world, including Ukraine, with billions of dollars in humanitarian aid. The support was paused for 90 days by Donald Trump's executive order to assess the efficiency and consistency of U.S. foreign policy.
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity separate from the national interest. These are taxpayer dollars. And so I'm very troubled by these reports that they've been unwilling to cooperate with people who are asking simple questions about what does this program do, who gets the money, who are our contractors, who's funded. And that sort of level of insubordination makes it impossible to conduct a sort of mature and serious review.
And that completes this edition of TVP World News. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more on TVP World News and Features.